9:30 in the morning, and an executive bus ferries prospective corporate customers from the local airport. They're buying for their own organizations, not for themselves, and the company they're visiting is saying, buy from me, not from the opposition. To do this, they've designed a kind of technological Aladdin's cave. I sometimes think that in America, selling is as necessary to existence as breathing. People just don't believe things until they're sold on them. And if you're a big company, you've got to sell them in a very big way. Here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, one of America's largest corporations has built what they call a living laboratory, although what's actually being tested might be the technology of the big cell itself.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Westinghouse Furniture Systems. Hi, I'm Shirley Thompson.
I'm Cheryl Edwards.
Cheryl, nice to meet you.
Blaze Keith.
Blaze, I recognize you from your pictures.
Thank you.
Rick Martinez.
Hello, Rick. Good to have you here. Thank you for coming. We're going to be going this way to the customer center, so if you'd like to step around the corner.
Okay.
Thank you.
From the moment they arrive, every potential customer also gets a personalized electronic welcome. All over the building, computerized message boards like these are lighting up to announce their arrival. It's one part of the VIP treatment they'll get today, from plowing through the deep pile carpet to plowing through the smoked salmon for lunch.
We've prepared some agendas of today's activities so you can get an idea of what's in store for you.
Their custom is worth a lot of money. An order might run from thousands to millions of dollars. Like most American companies, this corporation has an image to project both to its customers and to its own staff. And this electronic message, like many things these customers will see today, comes to them courtesy of computers.
In a world that demands new technologies and services almost daily, there is one thing of which you must be sure: quality. And you can be sure if it's Westinghouse. Almost since the day George Westinghouse began his crusade for alternating current, Westinghouse has used technology to make the world work better through the generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity.
Behind the scenes, a bank of slide projectors and a projection video screen provide this complex audiovisual display.
In construction,
They're controlled by a microcomputer which sequences the slide changes, the room lights, the videotape, and audio in all their split-second changes. If you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation like Westinghouse, but you're fourth in Office Systems furniture sales, well, that's bound to be a little galling. So what you do is you up the ante when you sell to people. You show off the rest of your pedigree, which is high technology, and you show it off with a vengeance, like this entire conference center. It's a multimedia environment with projection video, movies, slides, 37 different speakers, total control of all the lights, 33 workstations on this giant rotating platform, and a podium from which it can all be controlled. I think this room is marvelous. Let me show you. Now, this podium, which goes up if you want it to, match your height, is the control center for the room. All the lights, all the screens, everything, all the projection. But it doesn't control it directly. It's linked through a data line to a mainframe computer in the AV section, which is then linked by data line through the podium to the room, and that's what controls everything. If you don't want to control it from the podium, if you'd like to walk around, you can also control it from a handheld unit, or several handheld units actually. It takes 4 to cover all the controls in the room. Or you can have the computer itself run an entire show, doing things like this if you want. But funny as that last bit was, it's important to remember that this room was designed with a serious purpose in mind, not just impressing Westinghouse's customers, but also impressing Westinghouse's employees. Each of these workstations is arranged for a kind of maximal efficiency in a seminar. There's a smoke exhaust, so if you're a smoker, you won't bother your neighbors. There's a light you can flash to indicate to the speaker that you want to ask him a question. You have your own work light, and of course you have electrical outlets, data terminal connections, and phone connections. This is what the company makes: office partitions and office furniture. So why has it spent $15 million on building a kind of industrial Disneyland? Tom Rosewall is in charge of marketing.
Westinghouse is a company that is known as a big corporation, very technologically oriented, and it's able to develop relationships with some companies that are in the forefront of computer technology, understanding where they're going. And I think it boils down to a major series of investments. We make investments in our product, trying to incorporate that technology. We make investments in our facility, because in many ways this facility is a living laboratory for testing both our products and the computer-related products as they integrate into our own.
If you would please step this way. We're going to be taking you on a tour of our facility here on this computer-controlled vehicle. This vehicle is completely computer-controlled by this computer right here, and it follows a frequency-generating wire within the floor in order to guide it through our factory.
In view of Westinghouse's position in the transport business, it's not surprising to find this prototype vehicle being tried out.
What you're looking at is one of the largest space frame structures in the United States today. The polished gold.
The people mover, as they call it, has to follow a very precise path and has a number of sensors on board to help avoid bumping into things or, more important, into people. It takes the customers on a tour not only of the factory, but also of the sales and marketing offices.
Best operators as far as telemarketing in the world. This is where we do the life cycle testing of the product. Here you see the robot literally opening and closing these doors to these lateral files. What this does is test the life cycle, how long the product lasts.
It's difficult to know what will wear out first, the robot or the furniture. Westinghouse makes robots, so they've got to be on show, even though this one is Japanese. Everything so far is designed to create a space-age image. It's been polished steel, polished glass, and polished technology all the way. But this is the part of the tour where shop window gives way to the reality of the shop floor. And even this is polished. Workers take as little notice of the people mover as they do of the robot mailman, which follows a fluorescent strip painted on the floor. Visitors are a constant part of life in the factory, but by taking them round in this way, they cause the minimum interference with the work being done there. But now, it's time for another video. Because the shop floor is so noisy, an infrared beam transmits the audio track of each presentation into a sensor on the vehicle and enables loudspeakers to play the soundtrack on board the people mover itself. In a spirit of good industrial relations, this presentation was recorded by an employee, not an actor.
Our area begins here where the 16-gauge steel frame material arrives from our own roll form line. We use semi-automatic equipment like this MIG welder to position and weld the frame pieces into an extremely strong frame.
Most of the work on the shop floor is surprisingly unautomated. This is the technology of the hammer and the Stanley knife. Westinghouse owns the Unimation Robotics company, and yet there are very few robots here. This is reality, and with the present state of the art, the high-tech solution is not always the right solution.
We've had quite a few of the Westinghouse people from Unimation in the plant and do a survey. We've got the good applications we're already using with the robots. We are studying others, and we do have plans for additional robots or material handling devices that are very similar to robots.
It's not so easy to work them into the workplace, is it?
Well, especially in our application, because our parts are large and heavy. We need big robots in order to handle them. I think integrating is the big part of it, because a robot per se, like in this machine here, the robots work well, the computers work well, and when you gel it all together with the automation, trying to get it all going the same direction at the same time, that's what's difficult.
I take it this one's given you a lot of trouble so far.
Well, this has probably been the least successful of any of the pieces of equipment we've put in so far.
And this was the very job they were trying to automate. Today, it's gone back to being done by hand.
We do appreciate you coming today and spending some time with Westinghouse.
After the grand tour and a grand lunch, the serious business of negotiation. And of course, the environment has to be right for this, too.
One of the main points about these sales meetings is to avoid distractions. But people do have to be reached, so if a phone call or a message comes in...
Westinghouse Message Center. This is Tracy. Can I help you? Okay, I'll get a message to her.
That person's name and badge number is flashed on the display. If they look up and see their badge number, they can then come over to this silent printer, read their message, and act on it if they feel like it through the phone system. This panel also serves as a control for the entire room's lights, projection facilities, and so forth, and it has a couple of extra goods. the environmental temperature indicator, a thermometer to those of us who aren't into jargon, and something called the Data Acquisition Time Improvement Monitor, which is a fancy way of finding out what your meetings actually cost.
And so the cost ticks away each minute on a screen. But what do all these fancy devices accomplish?
Well, boy, that's a tough question to answer. What does it accomplish? It provides us the opportunity to try new technologies and see how they fit in the office. We're in the business of designing furniture, building furniture to fit into offices. Unfortunately, we also have to accommodate electronics and all of the other products that fit into your office environment, the file folders and everything else. We need to try virtually all of the technologies that are available, both cabling, like a local area network that we've got in place that you haven't even seen, to try the new high-tech data transfer methods, the electronic mails, the visual communications methods. Will they work? Don't they work? If not, why? Do they improve productivity in our office? Yes or no? When we can define or come up with a reasonable answer to that question for ourselves, it gives us a much stronger base to sell our product from.
Put together a number of typical workstations, and would hope that you can consider them. What you see in these workstations, of course, is a composite of our panel system and some of the components that go with it: work surfaces, cabinetry, shelves, seating. And if we can get your agreement on them, we'd like to pre-book them today.
An important part of clinching a sale is to be able to visualize what the customer wants.
This is the CAD room here at Westinghouse. CAD means computer-aided design, but you don't start with a computer. When you buy systems furniture from Westinghouse, you start with a questionnaire. If you fill that out honestly, they know the kinds of things you're really going to need in your office, and then Westinghouse works together with your designer to come up with a two-dimensional and then three-dimensional plan that uses the space most efficiently. That's when you come here and, using the computer, finalize your selections. So this is where we're seeing a three-dimensional mock-up of one of the workstations I, the client, have selected.
Right. Based on the results of the questionnaire, our system has selected this typical workstation for you. One of the things we can do is change the color. We can make changes to it.
These three-dimensional computer models can be endlessly changed until the customer is satisfied. Once the three-dimensional plan has been agreed, the system automatically comes up with a complete list of the parts needed to make your furniture. And it then produces a direct order which goes into the mainframe computer, which keeps track of what's happening on the shop floor.
As you said, it comes from the CAD system. It's entered in as a bill of material onto the mainframe. From that point, it dynamically creates a scheduled production and shipping date. We know within 10 minutes to 2 hours on an order that's been entered when we anticipate shipping it and when we anticipate manufacturing it.
So what we have here is computer-managed manufacturing with every order tracked through the factory using specially printed barcodes. It's this tight control of the flow of goods and materials that produces more productivity than any amount of robotics could. But there's no doubt that as the technology improves, more and more of this process will become automated.
Do you think your customers really do respond to the kind of stroke that goes on when they come in here to see your products?
Yes, they do. And even if they didn't, we would have to comply with that image anyway, when your primary competitors do the very same thing.
We're not in this for the fun of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we manufacture furniture, but we sell office environments. And I think that people in our industry and the facility that they're housed in has to epitomize what their industry is all about.
When all the offices in the world are as advanced as this one, what do you do for a show then?
Something better.
Freff reporting on the American way of selling. Well, that's about it for this week. But if you'd like a chance to win this computer music setup, then watch Saturday's Superstore tomorrow morning. That's unless you're watching the Micro Live repeat, in which case you've missed it.
Next Friday, Mac will be looking at the IBM's impact on the personal computer industry in a special report called Big Blue and the 40 Dwarves. So, until 7 o'clock next week, it's good night from us.